It took me 30 hours to build this. What I'm going to do is show you entity resolution in slow motion. Think of it like a little quiz. No one's ever got this right. I want you to look at these 3 records and tell me if you think this is going to become 1 person, 2, or 3. Give that a glance. Names are all pretty similar. The first and third have a similar address. They all share a phone number, even though they're formatted differently. 1 and 2 have a month and day transposed. What are you thinking? 1, 2, or 3 people? I heard a 1. That is 1 person. Plenty of evidence. Now, the next 2 are not so hard. What if you get this record? It's got the exact same email address, and many families share an email address, but the name is different. Well, okay, we don't have to spend a lot of energy on that. It's going to be what one would call a discovered relationship. Of course, you can be told about relationships too. Maybe you have a record, an employment record, for example, that says somebody's a spouse. And so that's easy. Kim here is related to record 3. We would call that a disclosed relationship. Great. What about that record? What do you think about that? Could you be confident that it's entity E1 just on a name and a date of birth? And we would say that's not a good enough evidence, and therefore you would call that a possible match. Okay, now what would you do with this record? It's only got the email address. Who is it? Many systems will arbitrarily attach this to either entity E2 or entity E1. That's pretty arbitrary. If that record says, arrest on site, then you kind of have a 50-50 chance you'd be arresting the wrong person. So a record like this actually does that. You're 100% sure it's both. Now, if E2 did not exist, that record would belong to E1 with some certainty, and if E1 didn't exist, then you could be certain or have some confidence it would be a member of E2. Okay, what about that? Take a good look at that. Anybody want to call out what you think happens next? When this combines with E1, it gives you confidence that entity or record 6 is really a member, so it joins. What about that? Take a good look. Notice that the ID number is the same as record 3, the name's the same, but the date of birth is completely different than record 1 and 2. This becomes evidence that record 3 is really a senior and never belonged. So when this record shows up, that happens. Only a couple more. That took a long time. Try to appreciate that. What about this? Now, what most people do is you would compare 10 to 1 and say there's not enough information. And you would compare 10 to 2 and say there's not enough information. And if you looked across each of those records individually, you would realize it didn't have enough evidence to match any of those records. But only if you thought about those records together in E1 could you have some confidence that that record actually belongs here. We call this entity-centric learning. This is the thing that's so key in catching clever bad guys. Now, what about this? What if you have to delete this record? Maybe it expired, maybe somebody said, you should have never loaded the record. Maybe under this GDPR law, there's a right to erasure, you have to forget it. What if that record never existed? The moment you learn that, you have to undo what it taught you. And really, I've had people study this for quite a long time, and no one's really got this one right. But you could, if you really spend long enough. When 8 is deleted, you have to move that possible match back to number 6, move number 6 out. And then 10 can only be a relationship. It's really amazing that a human being with only like 10 records on a screen can have so much challenge figuring out what these relationships would be.